Okay, welcome back. We are still doing OCR GCSE Business Revision for Year 1 or Year 10. This is the second video for marketing. We're going to cover the marketing mix in this one. Right, let's get on. So, first P, product. Okay, now there's two sides to this. The first one is the actual product itself, looking at how it's designed, whether you're inventing a brand new product or you're innovating a product and bringing it to market. Those three elements make up that kind of first stage of the product, and a more practical side of it. The second strand to the product is the product life cycle. You can see a picture there. Um, you may be asked to draw this. More likely, you'll be asked to comment on it. And we're just focusing on the four different stages there. So, what happens with introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. The key thing to remember here is that the axes that goes up, the y-axis, is sales. So, what we're actually doing is tracking what happens to sales over time. So, when the product is first introduced, the sales are fairly low. Then we hit a period of growth, and you can see that green section is quite steep growth. Then we get maturity, where it starts to level off. And then, if you're unlucky enough that your product goes into decline, you can see sales falling quite dramatically. Eventually, it would be withdrawn from the market. Now, some products have gone through that whole life cycle quite quickly. If you think of something like loom bands, if you remember what those were, whereas other products are still in their maturity phase, like Mars Bar, and that has been around for tens of years. Okay, so there is no fixed timeline along the bottom that you have to go through these stages. They will simply follow through depending on the pricing and promotion and product decisions that you make as you go along. And in that respect, we'll come back to the product life cycle later on. Okay, you've then got pricing, second P. Now you can see here I've separated out into two lists, considerations and the methods. The considerations are what you should think about regardless of the pricing method. So if you're asked to recommend a pricing method or to evaluate a pricing method, you need to think about these questions on the left. So how new is that product, and what pricing method might you use? So if it's a brand new product, you might be using skimming or penetration pricing. If it's a more established product, then you might be looking at competitor or promotional pricing. Think about the quality of that product, okay, and how people perceive it as to whether it will be a high or a low price. Think of the number of competitors. Again, skimming is when you've got no competitors or very few, and penetration is when you're trying to get into a market where there are lots of competitors, or you might be using promotional methods because of the number of competitors. Think about how much your consumers know about the product, the business, etc. If they're aware of the cost, then they might not be prepared to pay much more than that. So cost plus pricing might be the best method. Now, I mentioned on the previous slide, we'll come back to the product life cycle. We'll touch on it through all of this because the stage of the product life cycle can determine which method you use. When you're introducing a product, it might be skimming or penetration pricing. When the product is growing, it might be promotional pricing. When it's in maturity, it might be more competitor-based pricing. So, the methods can change over time as well. And obviously, the cost of the product are linked directly to cost plus, promotional and competitor pricing as well. Now, I've mentioned them as we go along. Again, you've had this warning on other presentations. There are more pricing methods available, okay? But your syllabus at GCSE requires you just to know these five. So we go back to that idea of knowledge and understanding. You need to know the method, but you also need to understand how it's made. So if you're going to choose something like skimming, then the knowledge is that skimming is when you have a high price, when you're introducing a product, and you lower it as you get more and more competition. That is just knowledge. The understanding would then be giving some sort of understanding of how it works with a product. Okay, you might talk about computer games or something like that. Cost plus pricing, you are guaranteed a profit here because you are taking your costs and you are plussing a profit margin to them. So you're guaranteed a profit, but it might not be very much of a profit depending on the level of costs and the percentage markup that you decide to choose. Promotional pricing is a temporary pricing method. Please remember that. The whole point of promotion is it temporarily goes up or temporarily goes down, and then it goes back to its original price after a period of time. Okay, it's not a price reduction or a sale. This is a promotional method where you temporarily change the price and then put it back after a short period of time. Competitor pricing, hopefully straightforward. You price in line with what your competitors are doing. And then penetration pricing, it's another pricing method you use when you're launching a product. But unlike skimming, where you don't have much competition, penetration is when you do have a lot of competition. So you have to price much lower down than your competitors to try and enter the market. And then once you've got a customer base, you can start to increase your price again. Okay, again, two strands here for promotion, two different approaches. And again, the number of bullet points here are what OCR syllabus says you need to know. So, in terms of point of sale promotion, this is what we would have also seen in some books as below the line promotion. And this is what happens in stores. So, things like price reductions, competitions, loss leaders, and free samples. So, again, that price reduction is a promotional thing. You are going to put your prices back up at some point. A competition is just that. So this is where you might, if you buy this product, you can then enter a competition, win a holiday or an overnight stay or whatever. And of course, the competition is designed to encourage people to buy more. The loss leader is the thing that leads you into the store, but is actually being sold as a loss. Um, It used to be something that was quite big with supermarkets when they had things like their value brands, but a lot of those have moved away from those value brands. But there will still be some things that are sold at a loss to encourage you into the store, okay, and buy things then that are full price elsewhere. And then free samples are exactly that. You may have seen this stuck on the front of magazines, for example, where you get free sunglasses or whatever. Also, if you're in the supermarkets, free samples, sometimes you can get someone will be doing like some testing with some cheeses or food or whatever, and you can taste it before you buy it. And again, that's there to encourage you to buy it. On the right hand side, though, we have the more traditional, what we would consider promotional methods. When we hear the word promotion, we often think advertising. Again, we are limited to these five methods. Don't worry about the others. So remember that social media and some websites can be free or certainly very low cost compared to other methods of advertising, whereas television, very expensive, print media can be very expensive, and then radio has a limited audience. Not a lot of people listen to commercial radio, so to speak. So that brings us on to the three bullet points at the bottom. This is what you need to think about when you are choosing whether it's point of sale or whether it's advertising. What are you going to choose? So it comes down to what you can afford. So a small business might rely on social media and websites. Free accounts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram are good ways to advertise and get followers and tell them what you want to do. You may also need to think about your target audience. Again, younger generation more likely to be linked to websites, whereas older generations will be responding to television and print media advertising. And then what is the aim of the promotion? Are you trying to increase your market share? Are you trying to increase your profits? Are you trying to increase your actual physical sales? And that will influence what you choose to do within this promotion area. Okay, place covers two areas, physical and digital distribution. Now, the physical distribution channels are there in that diagram. Um, Three main channels. The producer can sell directly to the consumer, or they can sell to a retailer who then sells to the consumer, or you may go through a wholesaler who then sells to a retailer who then sells to a consumer. Make sure you understand those different routes, okay? But please bear in mind that a new addition to the syllabus was digital distribution. Now, do not confuse digital distribution with online selling, okay? Digital distribution is simply something that you can buy online and then is downloaded. So something like a film or a music or streaming service, okay, podcasts. Um, so it is not physical, okay? It's not going onto Amazon and ordering yourself a new jacket and having it delivered the next day. Okay, that's online shopping. Digital distribution is looking at a product, or is probably more likely a service online, and that you consume straight away. So you download the film, you download the music track, okay, or the computer game, or a Kindle digital book. Okay, so often we link the four Ps to a marketing strategy. So you need to consider the type and the cost of the product, and then that will influence which elements of the Ps you're going to choose. We're back to the product life cycle. Again, you can think about what pricing strategy, what promotional strategy, what distribution channel am I going to use in introduction, growth, maturity, and in decline. Think of your target market. Go back to market segmentation from the previous video. Who are our target market? How are they going to respond to the different promotion methods, the different pricing methods, and so on? And again, what are the funds available? Is this a small business? Is this a large business? You know, can they throw lots of money at TV advertising, or are they relying on free online advertising? And don't forget, once you've decided on a marketing strategy, how are you going to evaluate whether that strategy has been effective? So, are you going to look and see whether your sales have increased? Are you going to see that your stock has been sold or cleared out? Are more people buying the product? Have the prices actually increased or decreased, and what is the effect that that has had on the business? And ultimately, have the profits increased? Remember that spending lots of money on advertising is money going out of the business. So for you to earn more profits, that money spent on advertising has got to bring in more customers than it cost to advertise for them. So that's another good way to have an analytical or an evaluative question here. Look at how the strategy has been effective. Um, don't forget that for market research, well, not market research, but for marketing, we said about market research has some number work. We've also got market data here. So things like changes in demand, the target market, the market share, the product changes, and the effects of promotion. How has that impacted on that data? Have sales gone up or down? Have profits gone up or down? Okay, is sales volume increased or decreased? Okay, look at that data and analyze it again with generic calculations, averages, percentage changes. Okay, I've said it before, if there is data in a question, they want you to use that data. So, exam tips here, make sure you've read through the case study, make sure you know what you're talking about when it comes to your answer. Make sure you can draw the product life cycle diagram within your answer, just a small one to help illustrate. If you're recommending something, state your choice and then try to justify it with a couple of points. You get a mark for the recommendation, you get a further 2 points for the justification. If you're looking at an advantage, remember to explain why it is an advantage. And if the question is about one of the P's, then don't bring in the other P's. Focus on that one P. And as I've said, use any data provided. It's always been there for a reason.